So among a few things I'm looking at replacing the minutes with are going to be these, which I'm calling decision in depth, DID, did, where we're going to look at a single decision from some game, whether it was mine or like this one, it's someone else's, and try to go through very thoroughly in a short amount of time what should this person who had this decision have did. Well, it almost works out. Anyways, so here's the decision, and it's a buy decision. So if we're going to go top to bottom, we're going to start with the board. This board has highway, and it also has a source of plus buy and good harvest. So, when there's highway and there's a source of plus buy or cost limited gains, what you're usually going to look at is you're trying to look at playing a bunch of highways, and then, have this plus buy. And with that, you're either hoping that you can pile out, or, get enough high cost green cards to kind of defend against a potential opponent pile out, or if you somehow get enough highways, enough plus buy, win the game that way. But, there is support on this board. You do need a little bit of support for that to happen. You need some way to connect all your highways. So there is support. There's a little bit of trashing in River Shrine, and then there's also some draw, whether it's this Rustic Village, Werewolf Slay, or there's non-terminal options, Root Cellar Artist. There's also Minion Way of the Mole, but those don't work so hot with the plus buy needing to come from treasures. So there's draw. We can do this highway thing. In games with cost reduction and plus buy, the split of the cost reduction ends up being really, really important. And the reason for that is because it basically determines, how much deck output you can get out of the same number of coins. We look at this and we can compare here. There's colonies on this board, 6 highways versus 4 highways. There's 6 highways, colonies cost 5, and say with 25 coins, you can get 5 colonies. On the other hand, if you only have 4 highways, colonies will cost 7, and the same 25 coins will only get you 3 colonies. So, quite a contrast there, depending on the number of highways you have, how much potential greening you can do. So, highway split's really, really important. And from there, we can look at what the side that I'm looking at making this decision from has done. There's currently 1 highway over here, so certainly there needs to be at least 4 more in order to really have a chance at winning this game. This turn, we played a horse to start it, we shuffled, and so, we are at the end of the shuffle. There's 1 card remaining in it. It happens to be in a state. Would have been cool to trash that instead of 2 coppers during the turn. But, we did trash 2 coppers during the turn. We did play Slay. So, we're plus 1 horse going into next turn. We're minus 2 coppers, which means we're certainly drawing. And for that reason, we can basically look at this as a pure, let's increase deck output. On the other side, they have 2 highways. They just ended up buying 1 last turn. They had to play a Root Cellar, but they are drawing. They played a Root Cellar for draw. They added their first non-Root Cellar draw card in Slay. So, if we try to project a little bit into their turn, like, what are they going to be able to do, in terms of this highway split? If they draw perfectly, they'll be able to buy another highway next turn, and they'd actually be able to buy 3 the following turn. If they were to not have to play the Root Cellar. And so that's really bad. If they're able to put 4 highways together in the next 2 turns, we lose. They have 6 highways. But maybe they won't draw perfectly. Maybe they'll only be able to get to 5 highways. Maybe they'll not even get to there. But in any case, we have to figure out how to get to 5 highways in the next 2 turns, because certainly they're going to be able to get to 6 by 3 turns from now. And so, how are we going to do this? From our position, there's basically 2 options. One is add a highway. That gets us closer to having 5 highways, and it also does increase deck output a little bit. We are producing 4 coins right here, so adding 1 highway will reduce the cost of highway down to 3 the following turn. And, that's not perfect. We can still only get 1 highway. But, it does get us closer. Maybe we'll get to the next turn. If we add, there is actually another option, which is to add like a werewolf or some other form of draw. And the reason that will actually help is because potentially, we drew using a root cellar this turn. And so, if we add some other form of draw, potentially we don't have to play that root cellar and we actually end up having more coins at the end. In this case, we are only producing 7 coins. And so, unless we were to add like a copper or something with the werewolf, we don't really want to do that. Even if everything were to go perfectly, we'd play the werewolf, we wouldn't have to play the root cellar, maybe we'd even trash it. We'd still only be getting 1 highway next turn. So that's, not ideal, because, you can kind of, game this out. I add werewolf, I add 1 highway next turn. 2 turns from now, I can maybe add 2 highways, versus I add a highway now. I can add another highway next turn. I can add 2 highways the following turn. That actually gets us to 5 highways, whereas adding the draw only gets us to 4. And so, in this decision, because we need to get to 5 highways in 2 turns, we need to be adding highway right here, and that should be the buy.